Hey, somebody needs to buckle in. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to The Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. I thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. The Professional Noticer is sponsored this week by wisdomharbor.com, the streaming service whose goal it is to create the next greatest generation. For less than $3 a month, you'll have access to original content found only on wisdomharbor.com that builds effective and influential relationships between adults and young people. Dave Ramsey says it's also for your business and teams. Utilizing video, audio, and the written word, content is delivered in small bites by Grammy winners, CEOs, comedians, master chefs, best-selling authors, and Hall of Fame speakers. There are even guitar lessons from an award-winning songwriter. Join wisdomharbor.com right now and become part of the quest to create another greatest generation, starting with your family in your hometown. That's wisdomharbor.com. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on The Professional Noticer. And we love it when somebody comes to the table with both. And you know what? If somebody really comes to the table with both, we have them back. And we've got our guest today for the second time. Very excited about this. #1 New York Times Bestselling Author. And you know, there's a few of those, but there are not many whose names you recognize. And there's not many, I got to say this, there's not many who are so recognizable and so successful that when their hardback book comes out, they don't even have endorsements on the back, just their picture. I mean, this is, as an author, this is what I aspire to. I want to sell enough books that they say, yeah, we don't even need anybody to say anything about it. Just put his picture on the back. Brad Thor. Hey, Brad, how are you doing?
I am well, my friend. It's good to see you again, Andy.
I am so glad that you took the time to be with us. And I'm so excited about this book. And this comes out July 25th. It's called Deadfall. And this has some very special things. And I want to get into this conversation with you, Brad. But it has my favorite hero, Scott Harvath, who is your hero. And so I looked immediately to see, because I knew this was kind of a different book. Is Scott in it? Yes, he's in it. Now, here's what I noticed that is different. I can't tell you how many times I've read the PR for a book and it said, ripped from today's headlines. And then you read the book and go, well, it was ripped from 4 years ago's headlines. Okay. But this book, even though you didn't say ripped from today's headlines, this is the only book I think that I have ever read that was written in real time.
Yeah.
Tell us about this and how you decided to do that.
So my friend Dan Brown, who wrote the Da Vinci Code years ago, had given me a nice blurb. And when I was putting blurbs on the books, and he said, Brad Thor is as current as tomorrow's headlines. And it was a great thing. And I loved it. It was a wonderful blurb. And I always have prided myself on beating the headlines. So my books are, thrillers. It's toes in the sand, book in the hand. I want you to take it to the beach, to the lake, wherever you are, relaxing and just enjoy a great white knuckle thrill ride. And it's normally I'm picking a big geopolitical set piece that I think is about to be in the headlines, like you're going to be reading about it tomorrow. This time, though, I set this book in the war in Ukraine. And the reason I did was I grew up reading World War II novels. And in fact, what's really funny, Andy, is last night I had read Ice Station Zebra by Alistair MacLean. I'd never seen the movie till last night. 1968, Rock Hudson starred in it. I mean, Ernest Borgnine's in it. It's a fabulous, just tense. I actually think it probably inspired Clancy to do The Hunt for Red October because there's so much submarining stuff in it. It's such a great Cold War War. That's not a World War II. That's a Cold War era movie. But, I love Saving Private Ryan. I loved, when we talk about TV shows, there's Band of Brothers. But back to McLean, like I loved Where Eagles Dare. Great book, great movie with Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood. I mean, great. So I've always wanted to do a World War II style thriller. And I write a current contemporary character. And I've been looking for an opportunity to do something. And I thought, okay, when I heard that this Wagner Group, the Russian private military corporation, was recruiting out of insane asylums and prisons in Russia to put these guys onto the battlefield, I was reminded of a Nazi SS unit that did the same thing towards the end of World War II. And they set this SS unit loose on Warsaw. And instead of the Red Army coming in and kicking Hitler's butt, Stalin stood back and let these guys commit horrific war crimes in Poland. And I had all this spinning in my head, and I said, okay, I am going to have a rogue Russian unit going through Ukraine committing horrific war crimes. You don't have to like the Ukrainians. I don't care. But what these guys are doing in real life is horrific. And I thought, what would happen if they laid hands on even one American aid worker over there? How might we respond? And I thought, I hope we send a guy like Scott Harvath over there to kick their butts. And so that's what I did with Deadfall. Harvath goes, he wants to take his team with him to go wipe out this rogue Russian military unit, but the United States won't let him because that will be considered putting boots on the ground. So Harvath essentially has to retire from his service.
You really have this right, don't you?
I mean, so he joins the International Legion. He can't take his own guys with him because it will look like it's a U.S. offensive effort over there, and it would draw the United States into the war in Ukraine, and it doesn't want to be in my book. And I take a very balanced view. You don't have to be pro-Ukraine. You don't have to be anti-Ukraine. This is sheer fiction, straight up entertainment. And like I said, if you loved books like Where Eagles Dare or The Guns of Navarone, that's really the feeling I'm trying to get with Deadfall.
Man, and that's the thing that I got because I love World War II stuff. I just, in fact, our studio here, we have a whole World War II section. I've got Winston Churchill's whiskey decanters. We've got a lot of stuff in here, and I love that kind of thing. And so when I'm reading, man, they're looting the art, and getting the treasures. I mean,
and that's happening. That's happening in real life. I wanted to beat Daniel Silva to that too, because I had a feeling Silva might want to tune in on the art theft that was happening in Ukraine. So I was like, I'm gonna jump on that real quick. But that's happening in real life, and the efforts to hide the priceless treasures by Ukrainian artists is an amazing thing. It's like that movie Monuments Men with George Clooney. So this stuff there's so many echoes of World War II and what's happening in Ukraine. It was such a I would normally say target-rich environment, and that's a military term. And to apply it to Ukraine, I don't want to say that. But for an author, there were just so many good. It wasn't, what am I going to put in the book? It's like, what am I going to leave out? That was the hardest part, because there was just so much fascinating stuff. And while I do write fiction, I do keep it as close to reality as possible. And I think that's one of the appeals of my thrillers.
You know, I think that the best fiction not just has an edge of reality, but I would call it a suspicion of reality. You know, where you read something and you go, now that I don't.
I gotta go look that up. Is that real? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I understand from some of your other books that you've kind of been accused of knowing some stuff that you weren't supposed to know, but you know, you have people who appreciate what you do, and you have conversations over coffee sometime, and I know how that happens. So
yeah, it's interesting. I had a book a few summers ago, and it heard a security review in DC with the government because I had called out some things and said a potential terrorist attack somewhere, and the government went, "Oh my God, we never thought of that." And so they did this whole top to bottom security review, and it made it into the newspapers that somebody in the government had read the book, and they were like, "Oh, we didn't think of this." And so that kind of stuff. And after 9/11, the government brought me in to do that stuff for them.
Right.
They had something called the Analytic Red Cell program, right? So anything I talked about, I call it the Las Vegas of government programs, because what happens in the Red Cell program stays in the Red Cell program. I can't talk about it. I can't put it in my books, but they hired me to think that way. They brought me in to think that way. And so that's, I continue to do that with the books. And it's nice to know that people in DC, people everywhere read them, but particularly it feels good to know that there are people in DC reading the books and going, "Oh boy, wow. Hey, Thor's got a point here. We never thought about that. Let's try to shore that up against the bad guys."
Well, I think that one thing that I think a lot of people knew this, but maybe it's been forgotten over the years. The idea that people in DC are reading your books, kind of a beginning of this genre happened with Tom Clancy. Mm-hmm. And that book was, Hunt for Red October was printed. There were 2,500 copies. And somebody asked President Reagan, "What are you reading?" And he just kind of, as he's passing, he said, "I'm reading a book called Hunt for Red October."
He got off the helicopter with it. Yeah, he had it. Somebody had seen it in his hand when he got off the Marine One. And that just launched Clancy. I think it was Navy Yard Press was his original publisher. And it just that endorsement from President Reagan just sent Clancy's career just like that.
Yeah, a friend the other day, somebody actually works with a newspaper, asked my next door neighbor, said, "What are you reading?" And Brian said, "I'm reading an Andy Andrews book," and nothing. My next door neighbor, it's just nothing. But President Reagan, I can see how that worked.
Yeah. That's a good thing to have.
If people wonder about this being real time, I mean, I'm just sitting here fascinated with you saying with that Wagner group, and it was just like 2 or 3 weeks ago we became aware of them, and you're like, this
June 24th.
book is coming out July 25th. This book comes out
4 weeks after the March on Moscow that those guys did, that they stopped. That's a fascinating thing. I was just reading this morning. There was the head of the Russian Air Force who was very pro Wagner Group, still hasn't been seen in public, nor has the head of the Wagner Group. Allegedly, Belarus, Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, supposedly brokered a peace there. But there's a couple of major players that have not been seen. So I don't know if they have sudden Russian death syndrome. The greatest cause of death in Russia is gravity. So gotta be careful. Stay away from rooftops and open windows. But that Russian Wagner group was something that I just, they are such perfect villains, and they are so much akin to a horrible SS unit from World War II. There's I think it was Francis Fukuyama that said, history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. And so there were so many echoes, so many rhymes of World War II that I just knew, Andy, I was not going to get a chance to put my hero in a World War II situation, a ground war in Europe like this again. It's funny. I have a picture on my computer screen here. The screensaver is a publicity still from the movie Fury with Brad Pitt, where he's the tanker. And that was, it's just such a fascinating, interesting movie. So I was just marinating, like I said, Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan, Fury. I just had these things on a loop in my head saying, what did I love about these stories? What was so compelling? The visuals obviously were incredible. The D-Day invasion, Normandy, all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to channel as much of that energy and as much of that camaraderie and the peril into my novel as possible. And that's what I set out to do with Deadfall.
Was there any time when you were writing this that, I mean, you had to be writing and kind of keeping an eye on the news. And so was there any time that you're writing that you went, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that"?
Yeah, so there were several things. One of the big things I was worried about was that that we were going to have a problem with Chernobyl again, or the other reactor that they have. The dam, the Russians blowing up the dam, was a big deal. So that I wasn't expecting, but I was worried. I was worried about some sort of a nuke incident over in Ukraine and how that could overshadow the book. And thank goodness, knock on wood, it doesn't happen. The flooding was terrible enough. I mean, there was even I'm a big animal guy. We've got dogs and stuff like that. And I grew up around horses, and that dam, when they blew up the dam, it flooded a zoo. It killed all the animals. 55 civilians died because of that. I mean, it's just a bad thing. So that was kind of the tricky thing of writing a book in real time, is there could have been a major pivot moment in that war, either a horrific attack or an incredible advance by either side, taking territory and stuff. There could have been a game changer. The war could have been over. So that was a real roll of the dice. But I wrote the book in such a way that even if somebody's watching this interview with you and me 4 years from now, they'd still be able to pick up the book and have a timeless, great white knuckle thrill ride, that it wouldn't matter, that I wrote the book in such a way that it's set in this war, but it is in the war, but not of the war, if that makes sense. It's its own standalone adventure, and it's just taking place among all this chaos.
Yeah, it's been years, but we still enjoy reading The Eagle Has Landed. And so I think this book is timeless as well, because I think the Russia-Ukraine thing, it's going to drag. It's going to have the same historical context, not as big, obviously, but it's going to be in history books just like World War II.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to watch. That's something else, is that I really steep myself in what are the issues, and I tried to be fair in the book and have different points of view, characters who wanted certain things done and what they thought Congress ought to be doing or not doing. So I tried to come at it kind of 360. And again, the focus is on the adventure. The focus is on, there's a bad group of people that need to be stopped. I mean, it is not okay to rape women and children and things like that are going on over there. So, we always, regardless of where it's set, we always love to see the guy with the white hat ride in and take out all the black hats. And that's, I mean, I'm in the business of, my job is not to tell you how to vote or what to think or any of that kind of stuff. My job is to entertain you. And so that's what I'm really hoping you take away from Deadfall, is just a great, 350 page work of entertainment.
I wonder how big I don't know. I feel like with Putin still in the landscape, it's like this wobbly domino, that is like, really, is he?
And you need to be careful what you wish for, Andy. I was doing some reading, and sometimes these, like, I had a lot of hopes with that Wagner group marching on Moscow, that this might be the end and Putin might be out, but you don't know who's going to replace him. And Egypt lost Mubarak, but they got 2 years later Al-Sisi, and he's worse. He's
you
much
think
worse than
Lenin's
Mubarak.
bad? Well, wait till you see the Stalin guy.
When do you meet Stalin? When do you meet Uncle Joe? Yeah, you'll see what happens. So the same thing happened with Chavez down in Venezuela. I mean, so you have to be very careful what you wish for, because sometimes you can get a worse guy, or these things can actually prop up a bad guy and make him even worse. This allows him to do a purge and all that kind of stuff. So, pre-COVID, I used to think that this was an actual Chinese nice saying, which was, may you live in interesting times. I thought that was a lovely thing to say. I didn't know it was a curse. Interesting's not necessarily good. Interesting means there's not stability, right? Interesting means you're constantly surprised, and nobody likes that. The financial markets don't like being constantly surprised. Your spouse doesn't like being constantly surprised.
Yeah.
Your kids don't like it. We need kind of regimentation, and we need things to be somewhat normal, if you will. So yeah, we are living in very interesting times, and we don't know what's going to happen. And so it's interesting as a thriller writer, though.
I think I could do with a little boredom,
Yeah.
But I know we all could, but I don't think that it's going to come with this book. This This is, and it sounds like a cliche to say that you're getting better. I don't know that your writing can get any better, but your mental gymnastics, what you're doing with your stories, you're getting better, Brad. This is, I think this is you at the top of your game.
Well, it's time for me to retire and buy the house next to yours then. Go out like Michael. No. I want to go out like Michael Jordan the first time. I want to go out completely on top. That's it. Good night, everybody. Don't forget your waitress.
I hear you, but I don't think you're close to that. But I think going out at the top that's the top. We could do a show on that because I don't like to think of Joe Namath in that Rams uniform. I don't really like to think of Joe Montana as a chief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm lucky in that if history is any indication, I can keep doing this for decades.
That's what
Ludlum and Le Carre, and Freddie Forsyth. So I love what I do. And I'm blessed to do it. And I've always said that I'll never phone it in because, you spend $30 for a hardcover. You can go out and make more money, but the time you entrust with me, the time that you spend reading a Brad Thor novel it's your most precious commodity. You can't make more time. It's time. That's time you could spend with your family, at work, on the golf course, something else maybe you love. So it's incumbent upon me to give you the best thriller I'm capable of. So I am never going to phone it in. I am always going to raise the bar. You may not notice it that I raise the bar for myself each time, but I do. I make it harder. My career has not gotten easier. It has gotten harder. Every book is harder than the last one because I'm trying to top myself because I figure I owe it to, I know I owe it to my customers. Actually, not even my customers. The readers, Andy, are my employers. I work for the readers. And when they go to Amazon or Goodreads or Barnes & Noble and they leave that review, those stars, that's my annual performance review. And I want to get 5 stars every single year. That's the way I was raised.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's, you've done it again and added to the pile. So I'm really excited about this for you. And I just want to, how long did it take you to write this? Do you know, start to finish?
So I write a thriller a year. So everyone is different. So some take a certain amount. There's stop and start because I have to go talk to experts. And a lot of this, so I can't,
about a year.
Everyone's a year. I come out with a new book every year. So if I'm not publicizing a book like I am now, I am researching or writing the next one.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a cycle.
Well, I had somebody say to me the other day, they actually didn't say it to me. I was in a bookstore and I saw somebody pick up a book and put it down. And they said, wow, $30 for a book. And I said, well, hang on, whose book is it? And they told me I didn't know whose book. I said, that's not really $30 for the book. That's $30 for a year of that guy's life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to phrase it.
It's like a year of somebody's life and that they did all the research and they did the hard work and you get to sit down and enjoy it for a few hours, put it in your library, give it to your kids, read it again later, talk to friends about it. I said, that's $30. Think about going to the movies, how much it costs. I mean, $30 for all you get from a book like this. And so you guys get it in hardback, get it now. The pre-orders are available. So this is Deadfall, the newest thriller from Brad Thor. And thank you, Brad, for being with us today. I appreciate you. I know you've got a lot of things to do, and that you would drop in with us is very much appreciated.
Well, it's always my pleasure, Andy, and I thank you for all the kind words. Thanks for having me.
I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing that tiny bit of mental energy I have for you. seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme, written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. NATO rounds for the cast and crew, provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by GrandpaSocks.com. Have you had it with the struggle to look sharp? Has fashion become a burden to you? Let the good folks at GrandpaSocks.com lighten that load. GrandpaSocks.com was started by two fraternity brothers from Ole Miss who were tired of the expensive clothes their peers pushed them to wear. One day in world history, one of them noticed that every guy in class was wearing sock garters, and that did it. "No more," he exclaimed, and at that moment, GrandpaSocks.com was born. You can now purchase any style and color sock without elastic so that they sag around your ankles just like your grandpa's socks did. No more sock garters, no more constantly pulling them up. Just have a seat, cross your legs, and watch that limp sock fall, leaving your shin exposed for all to see as if you could not care less what anybody thought, just like Grandpa. While you're online, check out our new no-elastic pale yellow socks, just perfect for wearing with sandals. We are GrandpaSocks.com.